Hello. All right, that's better. How's everybody doing tonight? All right. This is our 16th annual Yosemite Facelift. I started this thing in 2004 for selfish reasons. I was tired of stepping in all the toilet paper when I was going climbing. It just disgusted me. And rather than be angry year after year, which I was, finally one year it just dawned on me I could turn this around, go out with some cleaning supplies, and just clean it up, and at least I wouldn't have to step in this stuff or see this stuff for a year. I wasn't going to put it in my pack. We had so much fun, 120 people a day, all climbers from Camp 4. I did it out of the back of my truck 3 days in a row. We found about 50 or 60 truckloads of mattresses. Some of you probably left them out there, I know. I might have even. They could have been from the 70s. But it was so much fun, I realized that we got to do this every year. So the next year I did 5-day cleanup, and it's been 5 days ever since. I had this extra show on Tuesday night so everybody can kind of come and get camping, get settled in. We have a show, and then we can start cleaning tomorrow. I want to thank our staff back there. They're awesome. They're serving the beer and the wine and the other drinks, so thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Kaya, Jim, and Ed Whittle, our AV master, which I couldn't do this without them. And Shannon's back there helping with AV as well. It takes a lot of people to put this together. There's a lot of components, a lot of elements. We've got all that stuff outside. It's the daytime activities. We got the camping. All that stuff has to be managed, and I couldn't do it without all the help that I have. We have a tremendous crew. In particular, I would like to thank one person that has taken on many, many tasks and works very well. We work very well together. And that person is Allison Gonzalez, and there she is here. She's got a few words, so give her a big hand. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Can you hear me? Yeah. Woo! I'm really happy to be back here and to see all of you again. I have a few announcements. A couple people last year said they didn't know we had a silent auction. We have a silent auction. We have some excellent items in the silent auction, including a print from Jimmy Chin, an hour-long conversation with Alex Honnold, some other very interesting things. Hey, that's valuable. I was like, how do I price this? Anyway, go check it out. It'll be out at the registration. Bid well. Every dollar will go to help the Yosemite Climbing Association. Second thing, let's see, I don't want to forget anything here. Oh, yeah, we're having a stewardship panel at 2:30 p.m. on Thursday. So if the weather is bad and you want to come back early and check that out, I will be moderating a discussion about responsible consumerism, so how we can make wise choices with our pocketbooks, especially in the outdoor industry. So looking at all the options we have, how we can choose sustainable products, good manufacturing processes, all that kind of stuff. Tommy Caldwell, I hope, will be there, and Eric Raymond from the North Face, as well as Brendan McManus from Patagonia Wornwear. So it should be a good conversation. Finally, I'd like to thank our sponsors. We have a really cool collaboration going on this year. The North Face collaborating with the climbing management team, the Climber Stewards, the National Park Service, and the Yosemite Climbing Association is co-presenting Facelift this year. They will be doing a technical cleanup on Mount Watkins with the Climber Stewards. So we'll have them here for Sponsor of the Day on Saturday, very exciting. And on Friday, we have Black Diamond doing the same on Half Dome. So we're very happy to have them this year. So our sponsors of the day, the North Face, Black Diamond. A couple other sponsors I want to mention. We've got top financial sponsors, Subaru, the official vehicle of Facelift. Yeah, they've helped us out tremendously, and with manpower also. So it's great to have good partners like Subaru. And one more, Cliff Bar this year, they're actually hosting their athlete summit here during Facelift. So come check them out. They might be here during one of the raffles to throw out Cliff Bars. So thank you all for your time. It's great to see you again. I'm really, really excited for this week. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Allison. One other, a couple other new things. One, we decided to try live streaming. I didn't advertise it because I wasn't sure we could pull it off or that they could pull it off. But it's happening. So if you got friends that want to watch these programs, they can't make it, they can go to YouTube channel and look for Yosemite Facelift. We have a live stream every night, 7 to 10, and it came out pretty well. I'm going to try to do this every year from here on out. What's that? There's, no. On the movies, Carrie, you can do the captions for us. The other thing that's really exciting, I've been trying to do this for about 8 years, and this year Tioga Sequoia made it happen. And I'd like to thank Mike Cruz and his crew. We have a Yosemite Facelift beer, you may have seen, with our T-shirt artwork this year. 40 cents per can that you buy goes back to next year's facelift. So you can help support the facelift, drink a beer, and have a good time, and it's good beer. So I'm really excited about that, and we're going to do this year after year. So it's kind of cool. It's really hard to find a steady revenue stream, and I think this is it. We'll see. Couple other things. If you're drinking all this good beer and you can't drive or shouldn't drive or your friend shouldn't, we have a designated driver. We'll have a van out front starting at about 10 o'clock when the show ends, and we'll keep doing laps and make sure you get to your campground as long as you're in the valley. If you're at Crane Flat or something, that's going to be a little too far, and you better make sure somebody is a designated driver for your crew. But we'll make sure you get home. I think I've had 2 facelifts where we've had no arrests, so to me that's a good facelift. No, I'm serious. And so it's very important to me, and I stay here until the end. Our designated driver tonight is Galen Wilder. I don't know if he's here now. Is Galen here? Anybody see Galen? He'll be here a little later, and I'll bring him on the stage so you all know who he is. Just for your information, even if you're walking and you're by yourself, go with somebody else. If you're by yourself and you're drunk, you're considered endangering yourself. But if you have a friend with you, it's totally fine. You just go to, yeah, just stay out of the road, all right? Now, I don't want anybody getting hurt, number one, and number two, I don't want anybody to spend the night in jail. It's not fun. If tomorrow, we'll be out in front at 8 o'clock, and if you want to help with one of the special projects tomorrow, I'm going to read them off real quick. We got 4 of them. One is Washington Column. We're going to do some trail work on Climbers Trail. We were never allowed to work on the Climbers Trails until Facelift came along, and now we can work on them all year long, and it's really nice to be able to do that. You may have noticed it's a little nicer, our relationship with the Park Service. Now we have LEO out here serving food, out here serving beer. We all work together now. It's not like the old days where we're running in the rocks. We're all partners now. We all love Yosemite, and it's really amazing that we all get along now. So, other stuff. You may have seen that. Yeah. I ran into Tommy Caldwell with some German guys. He's trying to explain who I was, and he said, "Hey, that's Ken. He's the guy that make rangers like climbers." And they go, "Oh," and it was so funny. I go, "Really?" We got a new bathroom and a shower house in Camp 4. You may have heard or seen that new building. They're going to expand Camp 4. There's going to be more climbers camping. Tomorrow, we're going to be moving some rocks and riprap this little slope over there by the bathrooms. And if somebody wants to help with that project, you can come here years from now with your kids and go, "Hey, I put those rocks there." We also have an informal trail that we'd like to remove in El Cap Meadow. We did one a couple years ago, and it's grown back. You can hardly tell it was there. And the 4th project we have for tomorrow is a planning project in the visitor parking area. So if any of those interest you, come on out here at 8 o'clock at the check-in area right out front and sign up with one of the projects. It's great fun. The other thing is that there'll be food every night around the corner. On Sunday, I have free food, and I got 3 bands. We're going to have a heck of a music thing. It's going to be fun. There he is. All right. That's Plaid over there. All right. I want to thank the daycare for providing the food. All the food that you buy helps support the daycare up here. We have to be really creative in order to keep our schools open up here. We don't get a lot of money, and so there's anytime the community can kind of help and support these institutions, it's great. So, yeah, we have breakfast burritos. The local school is going to have those out tomorrow. Carabiner Coffee is going to have free coffee. We also have facelift mugs from Clean Canteen. If you want a special mug, it helps support our event. We got 3 presenters tonight. First one's Heidi Wirtz. Second one, we'll have an intermission after that, and then second one will be Kimmy Fasani, and then our third one after the second intermission will be Emily Harrington. And we got really good programming all week long. We got a schedule back there. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Heidi up to the stage, please. Thank you.
A phone call coming in. All right. Hello. It's so bright up here. Maybe it's y'all. All right. You guys are amazing. Thanks for coming. And this facelift, wow. Ken's put together an amazing thing for the Valley, and you guys are great for being a part of it. I have hung out in the Valley a lot over the years, and I would like to say that I am a climbing addict. I'm Heidi Wirtz, and I'm a climbing addict. How many of you guys are climbing addicts? I mean, I don't know if that's PC or not, but I really do feel like I'm pretty addicted to climbing. That light is really bright in my eyeballs. I can't see any of y'all. But yeah, this is in the Czech Republic, actually trying to put knots in to save my life, which didn't really seem like it was gonna work. So, but it was exciting. But so this all started for me, this climbing business, back in the early 90s, and I decided that to be a climber, I needed to move into my car, which now apparently seems to be a thing. Everybody lives in their car now, right? I mean, how many of y'all live in a car? I can't see, but I'm sure a lot of you do. I lived in my pickup truck, which is not as cool as a Sprinter van, but it was an 82 Toyota pickup. I lived in that thing for probably 10 years, and I would go live in a Visqueen teepee in Crested Butte to make money in the winter, which was great. And throughout this all, you know, it was this amazing crew of people that I ended up becoming friends with, and just this tribe of people, which was mostly men, I have to say, or boys at the time. But that's just the way life was back then, you know? And sorry, this is like, get ready for old school, because this is my old school slideshow. Some of these guys aren't around anymore, but this was some of the crew that was around in the early 90s that I climbed with, and it felt like family, honestly, and I don't know if it feels like that anymore today. Hopefully it does, but I think it does, right? Family? Are we all family still? I hope so. So that's what really drew me to climbing, was this family, and also just this place, to be honest, because Yosemite is just amazing. And, you know, so just romping up these things, this is up on Half Dome, which apparently is not all the way there anymore, which is really sad to me. I know that there's a way up it now, and I haven't done it since it fell down because I'm scared of rockfall. But, but yeah, I'm sure some of you have. I heard there's a nut toss now. But yeah, it came down to climbing for me. Lots of climbing, Tuolumne Meadows, Rocky Mountain National Park. That was kind of my life for a while. This thing isn't advancing. Oh, there we go. Putting up new routes in places. This is Rocky Mountain National Park. I put up quite a few routes up there. This is a route called Sharp at Both Ends that my friends and I put up, Topher Donahue and this woman named Patience, because there were women that climbed, just not very many at the time. It didn't seem like to me. But I learned quickly that I was really good at suffering. Yeah. So I was like, wow, I am meant for this, I think. Right? This is in Patagonia, and it was kind of colder than I thought it was going to be there. Yeah, and epics. I was like, whoa, this was my first time up El Cap. I don't have a whole lot of pictures. This wasn't back in the cell phone time, but we had our little camera, our little disposable camera, who knows what we had, and it snowed 2 feet while we were up on Lurking Fear. This is my first time up El Cap, and we weren't allowed. I was not allowed. This guy, Chris Purnell, who's not alive anymore, he died up in Alaska, but he told me no complaining the entire time, right? So I was in my mom's square sleeping bag that I had stolen from her, or probably borrowed, I guess, and all the stuffing had gone down to the feet, and I kept trying to pull it up, and it's dripping water down the wall and avalanche. We actually got hit by, I wanted to trade places with them at one point on this little ledge we were on, and then an avalanche hit him. I was like, I'm cool, getting dripped on. So I learned that epics can be kind of fun. And this may or may not be what it looked like in Yosemite when I got down. I can't remember. But we rappelled down because it snowed 2 feet and it was going to be icy eventually. I feel like I'm in the sunshine. And and he wouldn't let me tie knots in the end of the rope, which I want to tell you, this is just my little words of wisdom. Don't do that. Tie knots in the end of your ropes when you're rappelling off of El Cap. And when you're just rappelling in general, because why not? Anybody agree? There's this theory, right, that like you don't want to tie knots in the end of your rope, and I think this was like a telephone thing that happened when I was younger that was like, don't do it, your ropes are going to get stuck. Never tie knots in the end of your rope. You're going to get your rope stuck, and then what's going to happen? You might have to swing over and get them unstuck or something, but how many people have died from their ropes getting stuck? Probably not many, but people have died wrapping off the end of the ropes many times. So anyway, that's my one little thing. Just preaching. I'm up here, so I'm like, I'm going to preach. And then I got really into traveling too. I got to go to cool places, like to Wadi Rum and to the Totem Pole in Tasmania, which I got the good lead on this one, I got to say, because my partner was getting slammed by waves the entire time. I was like, I'm just going to take my time. But you look bumming down there. Doesn't look good. But yeah, that was a thing. Really amazing bivvies throughout my climbing have been a thing. This is in Patagonia. Sometimes this. And then finally I realized that there are women that climb that are psyched too, which was a huge revelation for me because I had never met women for, gosh, a good chunk of my early days of climbing, which I know there's tons of women out here that are really amazing. And it was a huge mind blower to me to meet these women that could do the things that I wanted to do too and were psyched. And so this is Vera Schulte-Pelcom. She came into my life and we did some amazing things, including coming here together. She hadn't climbed in 4 months, and I was like, you'll be fine. She came here and I was like, we'll just train up. We're going to do the link up of El Cap and Half Dome. She's like, okay, no problem. The first week we did Leaning Tower, Half Dome, and this is like in a day. And then we went and did Astroman, and then we went and did the nose. And we got to the top of the nose. This thing isn't working again. Oh, there we go. Here we are, like going up the nose. Topher, her husband, took some photos of us. And we ended up getting the women's speed record on it at the time, which, I mean, right now it's fairly embarrassing how slow our time was because it's so fast now. What's the time now? What's the time now on it? Anyone? For women? 3 hours? 4? Around 4? Yeah, we did it in 12. But I mean, we only did it once, and we held it for 10 years. I was like, wait, come on, women. I wanted women to break it so bad. I was like cheering for women, but you know. And then I also climbed a bunch with this woman, Lizzie Scully. This is us bivvying probably somewhere unexpectedly, but still psyched. And one of my awesome trips of my life, I feel like, that I went on was to the Bugaboos, which is an amazing place up in Canada. If y'all can go visit a place, the Bugaboos is amazing, and it's reminiscent of here for sure. Lots of cracks and amazing, beautiful granite. And we went there to climb this thing, which is the South Hauser Minaret. And I had never been to the Bugaboos. And I actually had one of my male friends, who I'm not going to say who it is, but he was like, wait, you're going to the Bugaboos and you think you're going to go put a new route up on something that you've never seen, you've never been there? And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe. We'll go check it out. And because our idea was this thing had never been freed before. And why not? Like, go check it out, I guess. And we got there, and it turns out we didn't actually bring enough stuff the first load in, but these other guys had brought a whole bunch of stuff in and left this stuff, and they had left. They were not coming back, according to the people we met along the way. And we're like, well, I mean, they were trying to free it too, and we're like, well, I mean, we're going to free it. So, I mean, they're probably not going to need to come back. So we actually pilfered their gear. But, so that might not be cool, but it did happen. We did use some of their gear. And, oh yeah, I learned how to break dance while I was there too. I just had to throw that in there. This guy was there that was a break dancer. I don't break dance, actually. One time I showed this, and somebody actually came up and I don't know, it's not called broke dance. She started break dancing in front of me and was like, don't forget me. We're actually really good friends now. But, but yeah, so we scoped out this amazing line. I was like, okay, it's going to go here and there, and we scoped it out for days and days, like, this is going to happen. We're going to go there and over there. And so we started climbing. We ended up getting good weather eventually, because it's not always good weather there. And we started going up. This was an amazing roof pitch that this thing maybe is not working. Oh, there we go. That's looking down. One of the cooler pitches on the route, I think. And it was just going. We're like, oh, sweet. We're actually climbing this route that we picked out. And then we bivvied, which was unexpected. Probably that picture that I showed first. And I was waking up in the morning, and I jumped off the edge to probably go pee. And my leg loops were sitting on the edge, and Lizzie decided to throw my leg loops off, but they actually weren't attached. So she threw my leg loops off. And so this is me. I tried to go down to find them, but I didn't find them, so I'm jogging back up. So I had to climb the rest of the route with no leg loops, which actually is fine. I mean, people used to climb like that all the time, right? And we made it to the top and actually did the first free ascent of this amazing tower, Lizzie and I. And if I had a laser pointer, I'd show you where it went. I do on this thing? Whoa, cool, look at that. What? Okay, we kind of circumnavigated the mountain and went something like this. Up through over here. We did some weird face climbing around over in this zone. And then up through these roofs and up and around and out. So it was I feel like it was like this I'm like, okay, we're going to circumnavigate the mountain, but we freed it, right? And it was pretty amazing because, I don't know, I also was stoked because my friend said I couldn't do it, and I came back and was like, we did it. And we got to the top. Okay, this is inappropriate, I'm sorry. But we got to the top and discovered that we were having a bad hair day. This is my inappropriate, maybe more than one inappropriate part. And we called it Bad Hair Day. And it's just so that people know that, like, women did it, I guess. And it's not just, this is on top, we're just like, yay. But it's not just that this woman thing, it actually, for me, was a thing. Because I was like working on freeing Half Dome here with a friend of mine, with Micah Dash, who's not alive anymore, and I'd go to the calf, just like all psyched, and people would be like, hey, Micah, oh man, how's it going? And high-fiving them and stuff, and I would just be standing there. I'm like, whoa, I don't exist. This is a bummer. But when I started climbing with women, I got attention. I was like, whoa, her and I did it. So we're doing this. It's not like some dude dragging me up the mountain. And I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but I just feel like it felt really good, to climb with women and to finally get some credit, because we are, like, women can be strong, like we're not, we can't carry as much stuff, although that's not totally true. I have some girlfriends that can carry some stuff. I like to bring them with me because I'm only little. but anyway, yeah. So climbing with women is pretty amazing for me. And I hope that all you women out there can keep crushing and sending and being inspiring. And so then I came across this whole giving back, because all it had been so far for me was climbing. And once I realized, oh, wow, you can actually go climb and give to these communities, which you guys are all doing on this facelift, it just changed my world. Then it's kind of what I wanted to do on every trip. So I found out about the Kumbu Climbing School, which Conrad Anker and Jenny Lowe Anker started. And I went there 4 years in a row. And I mean, there is ice climbing there, and we did some really amazing climbing there. But it was really about hanging out with these awesome people and teaching them it was like, the high altitude porters, you're teaching them high altitude or teaching them technical climbing skills so that they can be safer up in the mountains with the jobs that they do. Because some of these guys had climbed Everest 10 times, like no joke. This one guy had climbed Everest 10 times, and he had this really old funky harness that I don't know when that thing was from, but I had never seen one like it. And he had his Jumar attached with a bunch of duct tape and stuff, right? And I'm like, can I just take the duct tape off there? I'm just curious, like, what is under the duct tape? You take it off, it's just folded over and just literally just duct taped on. And I was like, wow, he's been up Everest 10 times. Like, how the what? Duct tape is amazing. It might not be the best way, but yeah. So it felt really good to go and just give back and meet amazing people. And one year I went, I had a whole crew of just women, which was pretty inspiring. And some of these women, Pasang, who is this one over here, she climbed Everest recently. Yeah. So she's taken it, she's just like, yes, I am a climber, and she's going with it, which is pretty impressive for a Nepali person, because when I first got there, Conrad, who started it, who's on the right there, he made sure that I led a pitch in front of all of them, like an ice pitch, so that they could see that I was a capable climber to teach them, because women just aren't quite as respected over there, although maybe that's changed. But it's pretty cool to see them excelling. And I also got to go on a trip to the Tagia Valley in Morocco, which is an amazing place, for sure. Big wall, sport climbing, basically. And we went on this trip to basically build a new roof on the local school. This was another one of my, we're going to give back things. We built a new roof on the local school because in the wintertime it was raining so much that the roof was leaking and kids weren't able to go to school because it was all wet and gnarly in there. And so that was one of our projects. We also did a bunch of trail work. I don't know, this is kind of not the best photo, but the trails were built out of sticks on the cliffside, right? And this is like a nomadic trail. They travel it, like a lot of the people would travel this in the summertime to bring their animals up to graze, and people were dying on these trails. And so we figured, okay, there's got to be something we can do to try and fix these rickety, it was amazing. So we went there, and we also climbed a bunch. We did full big wall style on this one because we were putting up a sport route on a big wall. So we built the roof, put up the route with, we had a good crew. That's Renan Ozturk. Conrad was there. Chris Erickson, Chloe Erickson. Who else was there? Kevin Thaw was there. It was a fun crew. But by the end, we built the school's roof, and these kids were able to go back to school in the winters because it was just too gnarly in the winters. They couldn't even go into the schoolroom. And we got a little crazy on the rock stacking, perhaps, but we did put, you can see the chains that we put in to make it a little bit safer and whatnot. And, you know, they might have actually pilfered the chains at one point, but we ended up putting up a new route, too, up this wall, and I'm not exactly sure where it was. It was somewhere up over in this zone. It ended up being like 12B, sport, and then about another 1,000 feet. It was like probably 2,000 something feet. It was like another 1,000 feet of trad climbing to the top. So, and there's so many more climbs to be done in Tagia Valley, like so many. It's insane. And just one more trip that I feel was one of my kind of this was actually a fail trip for me. It didn't feel like a success at first, and then it became a success, which was, I don't know if I've had a trip quite like that before, but we went in to go climb this thing. This was in Pakistan, and we went in to climb this awesome looking tower, which is called the Ogre's Thumb. And it's like 2,500 feet. We wanted to hopefully put a new route on. And you go across the Karakoram Highway, which is this colorful, people decorate their cars all crazy to go across the Karakoram Highway because you might not make it, so you might as well party on the way through. I mean, it's a gnarly road. It was horrifying. You're just on the edge of a cliff the whole time, passing cars like that. Yeah, and so here's some of our porters. It's amazing. I had never really, I think this was the second trip I went on that we had porters carrying a ton of baggage for us. This was quite a while ago, too. This was probably in like 2003. And we went up this glacier. This is the Biafo Glacier. It's off of the Baltoro Glacier, which maybe you've heard of. There's a bunch of classic climbs off of that. And it kind of looks like this while you're walking in. So there's glacier, but a lot of it's dry glacier. We didn't go, where we were, it was all dry. This is the way these guys camp. It's pretty amazing. They really loved my iPod. It was amazing. They were psyched. And this is how many people it took to get 2 girls in. This is what impressed me. I was like, whoa, do we really need this many people? But they would bring like bags of potatoes and just crazy stuff. You're like, wow, this is insane. And you're employing these people, so it's a good thing. You're actually adding money to their pockets. But yeah, so there's the tower again that we wanted to climb. This is our base camp, which is crazy because you're walking across glaciers the entire time. It took us about 4 days to hike in on glacier, and then you're on this beautiful meadow. It just seemed unreal. And this is on the approach in. There's these cool little ice columns that have rocks on top of them when you're walking in. And at one point we were walking, and I heard this giant crash, like rock fall it sounded like, and then Lizzie screaming. And I was like, oh no, what happened? And I went back, and Lizzie was bleeding and broken looking, and I was like, what happened? And I just have to flash back. She got up onto one of these to put a cairn on it. Maybe not the best idea. But anyway, she broke some ribs. She doesn't mind me telling this story. She sold it too. It was not the brightest moment. And so it was kind of a bummer because the weather was good and we were walking into high camp and this happened. But we still ended up getting to climb. This is the crazy thing is then like 3 days later, she's like, I feel good. I'm ready. Let's do this. She's tough. Like Lizzie is tough. And so we went up and she's smiling, kind of, does it look real? And we climbed. We started going up this thing and it's split. It's just beautiful, beautiful climbing. And but then she kind of started looking not so good, like a little ways up. And the weather started looking not so good. And I'm like, this is just, sometimes you just got to call it, right? So we went down, and actually a storm came in, which was awesome, because then I was like, yes, we made a good decision. And then it got kind of gnarly, and we hung out eating lots of food and having fun with our cook. And then decided to go, he was like, you know what? because I was like, there's no way. She's not going back up there. Like, her ribs are broken. I don't know what's going on in there. I had my little book out, my little, book on medical junk, and I'm like, you have broken ribs, for sure. I can tell. But he convinced us that maybe we should go to his village, because he's like, oh man, it's amazing. You can hang out with my family, and there's mountains right there that are amazing. And so we went to his village. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's bail. This isn't working. Sometimes you got to give up. And I'm like, I'm just going to go on a cultural trip. This is great. Like, I just flew across the world to do this, which is great. Like, my mom was so impressed, because usually I go on these trips and she's just like, wait, you went to Germany and you never saw a castle. I'm like, no, but I saw a lot of rocks. And you probably did not. But I'm just saying, like, we see different things. But yeah, so we went to his village and met his family, who were just amazing, like these amazing, beautiful, cute kids. And I actually did go up into the mountains, which I don't have any pictures of, but I went up a few little peaks up there by myself. Lizzie ended up not doing good for the rest of the trip. I learned how to churn butter, though, which was a highlight, helping the locals. And we always had little kids just surrounding us. Just literally, we'd be walking down the street and you'd have like 10 kids behind you and holding your hands and just hanging out. It was really fun, actually, in that way. And then we decided to check out their schools, because they're like, oh, come check out our schools, And so we went and checked out the boys' school, which was whitewashed walls and sunflowers in the yard. And we're like, wow, this is amazing. Your schools are amazing. And then we went to the girls' school and we're like, so what? Wait, what? And there was like literally like human feces in the yard, no sunflowers. And the desks are all a mess and upturned, and there's graffiti inside, and just, yeah, it was not good. And we're like, wait, what is going on with that? So then we decided to come back and do something about it. And we started Girls Education International. Yeah. So some of it got cut off. But yeah, we help support women and girls in underserved areas throughout the world. And so I don't know. This is just where my life kind of went unintentionally. I have to say I've been kind of a little bit of a tumbleweed. I was going to talk about direction and goals and whatnot. And I'm like, no, I don't know if I ever really had one. I just was going with it. But I am pretty driven when I get psyched. And now, which this is, I actually am into guiding people. So I actually started guiding when I was pretty early into my climbing. They're like, you can climb, you will be a guide. I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing. And then I did not like it. And I did it for a little bit of time, but now I'm coming back into it, and I actually really love it. And I have been going through the program of becoming a guide, even though I've been kind of guiding on and off for 25 years. But it's been pretty fun, and I also guide adventure retreats. So this is me being an adventure retreat guide, I guess. So I started Earth Play Retreats too, which is my business, and it's been really fun because I also teach yoga, and I'm really passionate about yoga and climbing, and so I've been able to combine the two and make it into something that I am really psyched on, and I get to travel the world and go to cool places and take people to stuff that I love, and I don't know. I feel like it's worked out all right, even though I was a tumbleweed. And yeah, we have trips coming up to Rincon. We do trips to Puerto Rico. And we do trips to Moab, which is one of my homeland, just like almost, it's like Yosemite to me too. Like those are my two. When I'm in Moab, I never want to leave, and then I get here and I'm like, oh, I never want to leave. And it's kind of like that. So, and I've started going to Greece too, to Kalymnos. I'm a sport climber now sometimes, which is weird because I never thought I would be. I actually really sucked at climbing face holds for a long time. I could only crack climb. I'm just saying that, just admitting to that. But yeah, that's my business. And that's it. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, yeah. I guess so.
Does anybody have any questions for Heidi? We can do a little
still
Q&A.
can't see. Hi. Yeah. I will try. Rock sexual. That's so funny because I was going to bring that up, but then I was like, that's not PC. But, okay, so I heard about, that's funny. Wait a minute. Who might this be? I know who this is. Jenny? Jenny? Anyway, okay, well, so I heard about, have you heard about ecosexual? Has anybody heard about ecosexual? So ecosexual is people identify with loving the earth and nature more than anything or person or whatever, right? So they're ecosexual, and it's actually a new identification, so it's a real thing. Sorry that I'm doing this, but I just feel like I can't see any of you if I don't do this. And so my friend and I were out rock climbing one day, and I was telling her about ecosexuals, and I'm like, I kind of relate. I do love nature, but I think I would be a rock sexual. And so we started kind of experimenting around with it. And we were joking at first. We're like, oh, this is, and I'm not going to go into what we would do, but it was just, but it was kind of, we were getting into it. And it actually made us climb better. It did. You're not, because don't you think when you climb, you're just up there going, oh man, this hold sucks. Oh man, what? This is so hard. But if you're going, whoa, this hold is amazing. I love it when it's hard. Just saying. Just saying. Now I'm red. Now I'm embarrassed. But thank you for that question, because I did want to bring that up, because if y'all want to experiment with it, it's a game changer. Game changer. I'm serious. That hand jam is amazing. Okay. Yep. All right, anybody? I can't see. Yeah? When I first did Astroman, how young was I? That's a good question. I didn't start climbing until I was 19, so that is a good question. Probably 25. Yeah. And I didn't onsite it. I started crying. I fell. I've been saving it. That's full disclosure. It was so sad. I actually did. My friend linked the two 5-10 pitches, and we were trying to pass somebody, and I didn't even stop. I just passed them and then just raced into the into the Harding slot and fell out of it. And I cried. Anyway. Okay. Yeah. How old am I? You're supposed to say, how young are you? I like that even more. Let's see, I forget. I'm 48. Dude. Pretty old. What am I most proud of? Oh, man, some of those trips, some of the trips where I gave back to communities, I think I'm most proud of, to be honest. And when I take people out climbing and I see a huge smile on their face, I'm proud every day. I'm just like, what? I just want to be as psyched as you. That is amazing. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I can share my stuff with them. This is my stuff. This is my life. I love climbing. I do.
She's proud of.
What are you proud of?
No, she's proud of being the youngest person to ever climb
High
out.
five. Heck yeah. What route did you do? Triple direct. Whoa, how old are you? 9. Did y'all know that? 9 years old, triple direct. You should be given a slideshow. 9-year-old. That's amazing. Okay. That is a tough question because we ended up having a really hard time helping that village. We tried to get, because we do partnerships with our organization. We don't go over as ourselves and do it. We work with people that are already established there, because in Pakistan it's pretty hard to go over as a U.S. group and do an activity like that without basically women getting killed, to be fairly honest, and to be totally honest. And we had a hard time getting a group to go into that zone, so we haven't been able to do that yet, but we'll see. I mean, yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's hard. We have programs in Pakistan that aren't exactly in that village. It ended up being kind of a difficult zone, like politically. So, but yeah, thanks. Good question. Anyone? Oh, we got another one.
How did your friend get hurt?
What?
How did your friend get hurt?
How'd she get hurt?
Yeah.
She got up onto a rock that was on top of basically my head, and then the rock fell off, and she flew off that way and fell onto the ground.
Onto a rock?
She fell onto the ice and just went like with a huge pack on. Yeah. So she smashed onto like her chin and her chest onto the glacier.
On your head?
It was owie. Onto her chin and her chest.
Rock on your head?
The rock fell the other way, thank goodness.
I think they were taking you literally that the rock was on your head.
Oh, no, the rock wasn't on my head. No, there was like a ice pedestal, and the rock was on top of the ice pedestal. Yeah, but it was way taller than what I'm saying. The ice pedestal was like this. It was probably like this tall. How'd she get up there? She's a climber. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone? Yeah? What was that? Oh man, all of them. You know, the first time I saw this woman climbing a 5'8" actually when I first started climbing, and she probably was the most inspirational. She still is, you know. I'm just like, whoa, that woman is leading a climb. Like, I didn't know what a 5'8" was. I didn't, you know, it was just inspiring. But yeah, definitely, every time I see women climb, it just is inspiring to me. I love it. Yeah, so obviously, like, Lynn Hill is inspiring, and all these really strong women are inspiring, but I just love seeing women getting after it more, because I feel like when I first started, I didn't see that many women, and just now I go out and I see more. Like, I saw a woman out today climbing. She was like learning how to aid climb, and I was like, yes, like, that's inspiring. Like, you women are doing it. It's cool. Heck yeah. You got another one?
That shirt.
Huh?
Where did you get that shirt?
Oh, the North Face makes this one. Do you want one? They gave it to me. They give me clothes. North Face. I know, it's crazy. They just give me clothes. It's crazy because I used to have really not that many clothes, and now North Face gives me clothes. It's crazy. How long? Well, I'm not very good at math right now. I used to be better at math.
I know that.
Huh? 91.
91.
Mm-hmm.
91.
There you go.
A billion years ago.
A billion. Huh? What was one of the hardest routes I've done? Or what were some of the hardest? Huh. You mean like technically, or just like that was challenging? Everything. I did the rostrum the other day and was like, wow, this is hard still. I don't know. They're all hard. I met somebody early on in my climbing that was climbing a 5'9". He's like, it never gets any easier. I'm like, uh-oh, that's horrible. I was hoping it would get easier.
Why is there a cow on your bracelet?
Because I'm one of the tribe.
That also
We all have spots. How about this guy over here? I'm getting waylaid. Okay, we got one more question. Oh, man. Probably, that's when I dabbled at guiding, and I thought it was a really stupid idea. And I would say, I would have told myself, just do because I'm trying to do the AMGA track now, which I thought was super poo-pooey and really lame, to be honest. Like, it's kind of like getting sponsored. Sponsored means you sold out and you suck. Back then, right? That's what I thought, for real. And then I started getting things given to me here and there, and I was like, God, I really do need a new pair of shoes. And like stuff like that started happening, and the guiding thing was the same thing. I thought it was lame, and I wish that I had just gone through the track then, because it's actually kind of cool. I could be guiding in Europe now, if I had done it. So I think I would have told myself that. Yeah.
Heidi Wirtz, everybody. Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks.
We're going to take about 10, 15-minute break. There's still some plates of food available around the corner. They're trying to sell a few more. It all supports the local daycare. And then we'll start our next program in about 10, 15 minutes. Thank you. All right. Some people have been asking where they can get the Yosemite Facelift beer made by Tioga Sequoia. They're selling this throughout the valley, and it's the artwork from our T-shirt done by Santiago, local artist from Mariposa. Every store in the valley, Tuolumne, Wawona should have it, and there'll be 3 places in Mariposa too. Tell a friend, they're collector's items. It's pretty cool. I'm really psyched on that. Our designated driver, I'm checking to see if he's here, is Galen Wilder. Does anybody see Galen? I'm not sure who he is. At some point he'll be here and we'll get him up here. Our next presenter is from Mammoth Lakes, place that I spent a lot of time at. I love it over there. A lot of good climbing, a lot of good skiing. Her name is Kimmy Fasani. She's a pro snowboarder. And she also owns a bakery over in Mammoth called Deserted. How many people have eaten or gotten some from Deserted? Cool. And you guys ready to start a show? All right. Please welcome Kimmy up here, please. Thank you. Thanks, Kimmy. Have fun.
Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be here, obviously coming from the snow side of mountain world, being able to be at Facelift and be part of this, and I'm here with Cliff Bar, so it's really cool to be able to interact and be part of the valley this time of the year for me. And this presentation is kind of just going to be about my version of climbing mountains that incorporates climbing physically and mentally. I love this quote because for me, I'm always immersed in the deep, deep backcountry, and snowboarding has been my life for so long, but the top of one mountain is the bottom of another. And Marianne Williamson said this, and I just find that it's so synonymous with life in general, but for me as a snowboarder and coming into the climbing community as well, I don't know. You'll see why I think it's so important. So this, I was born and raised in Truckee, California, and Tahoe. I've lived in Mammoth since 2002, but this will kind of give you an idea of what I do. Maybe? Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I don't know how I got into that, but for me, it actually started here. I started skiing when I was 2 years old. My mom was a very advocate mountain enthusiast. She was a nurse growing, and she wanted to raise me in Tahoe because she just thought that it was an amazing community. And my dad, unfortunately, got sick in 1999, and this is about this time frame, especially the backflip on this side. I started competing on my snowboard, and it was all to the reluctancy of my mom. Like, she bought me a snowboard in 1993 over on the left, thinking it will never last. And she never bought me snowboard boots. She bought me Sorels, and she said, that'll do. And so a few years later, by the time I was like 14, I decided that my fearless approach to life and my tomboyism, and I don't know, I just had this different way of thinking, and I was always outside playing in the snow, and my guy friends convinced me to try a backflip in the backyard, which is what that photo is. And I think that's when my mom realized that this is something that I wasn't going to walk away from. And so unfortunately, yeah, my dad was diagnosed with cancer the same year, and this is the year that I decided that I was going to start climbing mountains, and it was more metaphorically than anything. I found snowboarding as my outlet to the mountains and my way of really becoming peaceful with myself and all my thoughts, and I was able to be super mindful and more meditative, even at my young age. Not that I knew what any of those words meant, because when you're 14, all of that matters is like being cool in high school or not. And but yeah, I kind of found myself on my snowboard. So we go from 1999, me starting to compete, getting some amateur success, getting my first sponsors, Burton and Cliff Bar being some of those, which it's crazy to think that was like half my life ago. And then we go to moving to Mammoth in 2002, and I promised my mom that I would go to college. She helped me pay my rent, and I promised that I would work a full-time job. So I worked at a steak and seafood restaurant, and that farthest photo is actually me and Chris Ben Chetler, which is now my husband. He was an ice cream scooper in that photo, and an aspiring professional skier. And both of us actually met due to the coincidence that his dad had actually passed away that year from the same cancer that my dad had died of a few years prior. So we just immediately kind of had a bond. I loved ice cream. He probably made me gain about 20 pounds. And maybe that helped me with my snowboarding. It made me faster hitting jumps, I don't know. But my mom definitely encouraged me to go to all the contests, and I tried to do contests, and I don't know if any of you have competitive courage, but I really didn't. I failed miserably at contests, and I would get so nervous at the top of a slope style course, and half pipe sometimes, but that I would make it through practice without landing any of my runs, and then I would qualify for finals somehow, and then during finals I would always get last. And I think it was from my amateur success I realized, okay, maybe it's not that easy, because I thought that this was going to be something that was like given to me. I thought that I was pretty good at it. So I think this is the year that I realized that I was going to have to start climbing and start working my way up the ladder. And so I actually started climbing with Chris. We got into just being around in the Sierra, living in Mammoth. We're exposed to so much, and I realized the connection between climbing in the summer and climbing in the winter, and how connected they were and how passionate it makes you for the mountains and your surroundings, and especially for trying to access some of this terrain during the winter as I got older. It just made such a huge impact for me to be able to see how I could approach these mountains and really be connected to them and be able to see lines during the winter and be confident enough to trust my feet and overcome fear during the summer. So that next year, so 2011, we're skipping forward now. I actually had a wildly progressive year, and I think it was, I just kind of found my footing with snowboarding, and I had been given an opportunity to start filming in the backcountry, and in 2011, I landed the first double backflip for women in backcountry and in terrain parks. And so, thanks. And so when I did it in the backcountry, it was kind of like I really didn't want to tell anybody, and I was super secretive because I just wanted to be able to, I didn't know if I could do it, and I wanted to be able to try something new for myself and really believe that I could, so I would like study videos and whatever, and then that led to me working with Mammoth. They were really cohesive in helping me do this because they built me a park jump, and they gave me time to session it, and I ended up, my fourth try in the park, I ended up landing this, and so that kind of helped gain so much more confidence for me, and I also started realizing that there was a lot more to this, and I'll get to that later. And then that same season, I landed on the cover of Trans World Snowboarder magazine, and this was a huge, 2011 in general, it was like the highest peak I could have ever climbed. I felt like I was at the top of my career, and there was no way that I was ever going down. And this cover was the first time a woman had been on the cover in 5 years, and it was only the 5th woman to ever be on the cover. So then, this looks like a really happy, smiley selfie. So this is December 2012. So throughout that period of time, I had kind of given up contests, focused primarily on backcountry, despite that effort of the jump that you just saw. But I actually decided to change my approach to snowboarding because the Olympics were just accepted into, slopestyle was just accepted into the Olympics. And I decided that I wanted to try to be a US member going to the Olympics for slopestyle. And I knew that I had what it took, but it was going to take me some time to get back there. And ultimately, I ended up starting out my season really strong. In December, I ended up drifting off a jump, and I thankfully threaded the needle through some trees, and end result was broken pelvis, ACL, MCL, PCL. A 3-hour surgery turned into a 6-hour surgery because they didn't know that I had done my ACL. I was off snow for a year, and they told me when I got out of surgery, I'll never forget, because the doctor is like one of the best in Mammoth, and he really made me feel like going into surgery, like, yeah, we've got this, we can get you back on snow in 6 months. And I'm driven, I'm motivated. I got out of surgery, and he said, so Kimmy, I think we should start having you family plan. I don't know if there's gonna ever be a time that you're going to be able to get back on your snowboard and be at the level that you're at. Your knee was way worse than your knee was way worse than we expected. And I don't know, for me, you trust your doctors, and obviously we all go through these lows, but I went from like this highest peak to definitely the lowest valley that I could have imagined. But I realized that it was also another opportunity for me to start climbing. So my rebuttal to the doctor was, okay, well, when can I do a triathlon? Let me have something to work towards. Let me be motivated by something. He's like, okay, well, you can't be on snow for another year. You have a lot of roadblocks ahead of you. And so I proposed this idea of doing a triathlon the following October. So this was 10 months past my injury. Prior to this, I only did the sprint level, mind you. I'm not trying to go like gnarly long distance. So it's like a 3-mile run, a 6-mile bike ride, and a 1/4-mile swim. And I had not run more than 1.5 miles leading up to this run. But anyways, so this is the end result. 10 months later, I finished my triathlon, and I ended up getting first overall in my age group. And to me, thank you. But to me, this was, when you set your mind to something, like, you can climb any mountain that's presented to you. It's just a matter of how hard you're willing to try. And so then we go from triathlon, I'm like, okay, I get back on snow, but also throughout my injury, I realized how important it was for me to be able to give back to my community, and I felt like, okay, I'd just taken all this selfish time building my career. It's probably time for me to step back and really figure out a way that I can include more women and give them an outlet to progress without contests, because that's a very limited outlet in our industry. But also, I just wanted to be able to help other girls and inspire other girls, especially women at that point, because I had felt like it had taken me a long time to get where I was in my career. And I wanted to be able to pass down some knowledge. So I started an amusement park, which is a women's only, and not women's only, there are men there and they help inspire us and they hit the jumps and it's great. So it's not totally exclusive, but I really wanted to give the women a platform to shine without being in a contest. So I started an amusement park, and that was all inspired by my double backflip jump, because Mammoth has worked with me really closely to be able to host that event for multiple years. And that top photo with all the girls cheering, that was our first year. We had 80 girls just show up for a Burton Girls Ride Day. And then over on the left, those are my girls that hit a almost 90-foot jump the first year that we decided to do that event. And then this event has now transpired as my career has progressed into a backcountry event. It's called Amusement Mountain. That's over here on the far side. And every year, I've taken the last 2 years off, and I'll show you why in a moment. But I have been able to give back all the knowledge that I've learned in the backcountry to a handful of girls and give them backcountry awareness and avalanche education, and helped inspire them to kind of be out there on their own as leaders. So that was all a very big silver lining of my injury, and helped me kind of reach a new peak. And then we jump forward. So I come back from my injury, and this is 4 years later. I had always filmed with my husband, Chris Benchetler, but also different guys throughout the industry, different film crews, trying to earn my position on a film crew so that I could really stand up on my own and make decisions on my own in the mountains. And in 2015-16, I was given the opportunity to join Absinthe Films, which is a very prestigious endemic snowboard magazine. And it's an all-guys crew, and this is the first time in 5 years that they had had a woman film with them, which was a huge highlight for me, but also I was so intimidated going into this season. I'm like, they paired me with some of the best big mountain riders in the world, and they brought me to Alaska, and that was my first time being to Haines, and I had no idea what to expect. But thankfully, when I showed up there, I just realized, like, after all that climbing for my injury, I knew that it was my time to prove to myself, but also to all the naysayers or the people that didn't believe that I would be able to get back to that peak, that I was able to do what I wanted to do. So this season brought me one of the biggest highlights of my year. I ended up winning Women's Rider of the Year and Snowboard Rider, Women's Rider of the Year for both magazines, and then also Video Part of the Year for the biggest, like, endemic snowboard magazines. It's pretty funny. It's like in that photo with the glass, you see the notes on my hand. I almost was going to do that tonight, but I was like, I won't redo what I did there. And the unfortunate part about this is it's like we go through these peaks and valleys, but for some reason, the things that I've been through, you can't have a peak without a valley. So at the same point, I actually, as I found out that I was nominated for being for Rider of the Year, my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she was only given about 3 months to live. And so her being my biggest support, she's always the one that, like, printed out all the articles and whatnot, but so she wasn't able to actually be with me at the award show because she was so ill. And as soon as I found out she had cancer, I moved in with her, kind of dropped everything for that season, and she ended up passing away at the end of January. And some of the things that she said was, she always made sure that I loved what I did, so she always encouraged me to stay true to snowboarding if that's what made me happy, but she also reminded me how important it was to have kids. And that wasn't something that was the first time. She had been trying to encourage Chris and I have kids for a long time. We had been married for a long time, been together since we were 16 and 19. And so anyways, so she passed away, and it was definitely one of the hardest things for me to go through. I realized that it was, you can't really have that peak without that valley, but I knew that there was something positive coming from it. So she passed away. I ended up refocusing my career and just really dedicated 3 weeks to that season. And in June, found out I was pregnant and was able to still snowboard kind of throughout that next season, but I also was nominated again for Women's Writer of the Year that fall, which was pretty special to be able to kind of carry on my career, but also celebrate bringing in this new life. And my husband, Chris, has been able to do a great job with me bringing our son out into the mountains. Our son was born in March on a full moon, the biggest snowstorm of the season, and ironically also the same anniversary of Chris's dad's passing. So it was a very special moment for us to kind of have this reincarnation of whatever life, and a beautiful peak for us to be able to start a new journey despite all of our loss. And so we go from having this mentality of, well, I was pregnant, I was really scared. When I found out I was pregnant, I talked to some people and I tried to figure out where my career would stand. And I ended up deciding that I never really wanted to walk away from snowboarding, and I felt like it was something that would always be part of my life. And I didn't think that just because I was pregnant, I didn't think it should end my career. And so I called the CEO of Burton about 12 weeks into my pregnancy, and I said, "Hey, Donna," I was pretty uneasy in my conversation, but ultimately I just said, "I'm pregnant." And my contract was up that year, so I knew that they had the choice. They had the choice to keep me, or they had the choice to let me go and kind of start this new chapter. And Donna hands down said, "Let's do this. Let's tell a new story. Let's tell something that we will figure out as it kind of unfolds." And so ultimately, I just realized, I can do this, and who knows what it's going to be like. And while I was pregnant, I was like, oh, I'll be able to do everything that I did before. It's going to be amazing. I'll travel the world, and it's going to be no problem. I'll be able to snowboard all day. And so anyways, I kept snowboarding, and I kept my career, and Burton signed me on for multiple years, which was really helpful, especially being a woman. It's like I always felt like I had to end my career and then start a family. So this really changed the game for me and so many other women in action sports. But that unfolded to us traveling the world. We started traveling with Koa when he was 3 months old, and then we went a month in New Zealand and Australia in an RV, which was an amazing experience. And that was while he was 5 and 6 months old. We were still kind of breaking back into it. It was during the summer, our summer, so I hadn't really got back into the groove of being in winter. And so I'm just going to show you a clip. Chris and I, while we were pregnant, we decided that we were going to start filming a passion project. It's a family story about us as athletes kind of unfolding this journey together for people to see the realness of that it's not all butterflies and rainbows out there. So we spent a month in Japan. This is my first time really being emerged back into snowboarding and trying to be away, and our son wouldn't take a bottle, so my time was very limited. Those of you that parents are probably understanding, but here you go.
I just want Koa to start realizing what traveling the world can do from an early age. And I want every place we go to help him see that the world is a very big place. I just hope traveling brings Koa happiness like it has for Chris and I. It's like from the beginning, I always thought that I could balance my career and having a child, and I didn't really understand why women didn't. and I didn't understand why it wasn't something that was like easier. And now that I'm in it, it's really hard to balance because you're constantly thinking about your child.
So do you think I'll be okay if I'm out, like not home for an hour?
I'm incredibly grateful that I have somebody that I can hand Koa off to that I trust completely, and I know that she is confident and compassionate with him.
Hello.
But it's still really hard because I don't want to miss moments with him.
Hi, Koa. Hi, Koa. I know. I'm sorry. I should have seen you. Okay. Bye.
It's so cliche because that's what everybody says, but I understand now why working moms have a hard time being away, and I also understand why being a mom is the hardest job.
It's so sad. This is like the hardest thing ever to juggle. It's like I just can't make time for me. When I do, I'm just crashing, so it's not very healthy. I was
no,
okay.
She doesn't mean it when she's 1 minute is like over it and doesn't want to snowboard anymore, and the next minute she had the best run of her life.
He's such a good husband.
You have a lot, your duties just totally amplified. And if you give a child love and show them that anything is possible, then that's all they're gonna know. And so as a mom, that's what I wanna show my child. I wanna show Koa that anything is possible and that there's no reason to be afraid. But that's also tricky because I have to show him that. I can't live in fear, and I have to be happy in order for him to know that he can always be happy.
Okay, so thank you. So you guys are the first ones to ever see that. Oh gosh, this year has been hard, but it's also helped us grow so much, and we really realized like it's a juggle. And my son is actually here tonight. It's way past his bedtime. He's somewhere with his dad. And our amazing nanny, Elle, thank you, because we couldn't do it without help. Being that we don't have family, having the community is the biggest deal, and so having somebody that we can truly rely on has made the biggest difference. So anyways, we go from Japan, and I'm like, that's it, I'm done. Like, I can't hang, I can't do this. I was so broken, and actually after this, Chris ended up leaving to go home for a trade show, and I ended up breaking my wrist. So it was a good valley for me to just really reprioritize. It's like, as a new mom, but also as an athlete, as an athlete, you're so selfish, but as a mom, you have to be so selfless. So learning to balance that has been the biggest thing for us this season. And so I think just to cap it off, Burton decided that they wanted to present me with an amazing opportunity that I couldn't pass down. They offered to do a photo shoot in Svalbard, Norway, which is an island about 400 miles south of the North Pole. And they said that my family could come. And so we would be on a sailboat for 6 days. And it was, after Japan, I was like, I don't know if I'm capable of going on another trip. Like, that was so hard. At the same time, it was also the most rewarding thing to see my son interact with different cultures and be able to handle being all over different places and be able to, for me too, to be able to figure out and stay focused on what I love to do and showing him my passion. So we agreed to it, and we ended up going to Svalbard in May. And I have to say that this was most certainly the highlight of my career because I was able to bring my family on a trip, and it was the first time this whole season that I felt connected to the mountains, where I could actually be there and not feel like I was a million miles away, because my son was actually on a boat at the bottom of every line that I rode. And so he was really only about 10 minutes away, even though I was two-hour hike up the mountain. And I got off this boat to being out of service for 6 days, and I got off this boat to flooding inbox of text messages and input. I don't know if any of you saw the breakout information about how there were certain companies out there that weren't supporting women through pregnancy, and it was a very interesting conversation to be part of. But anyways, when I got off this boat, I found out that Burton actually incorporated every single clause that they put into my contract for being pregnant and a mom and going through maternity into every single woman contract that is current and moving forward. So I ended my season very proud because I think we go through these highs and lows throughout life, and we realize like maybe we feel like we're stuck in the low forever and it's never going to turn into something positive. But I feel like adversity really brings, if you can challenge it with optimism, it can bring so much positivity. And for me, getting off this boat, knowing that Burton had just changed their wording and contracts to enable women to do what I just did throughout my season, I felt like it was a huge step forward for not just all women, but athletes in general, men, everybody, families included. So I end you with that.
Does anybody, thank you, Kimmy.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any questions for Kimmy? No, don't be shy. Come on. Who's going to start it off? There, we got one.
Guess.
What's it?
That's a good guess. I'm actually 35. Woohoo! Age is a good thing. It's worth celebrating.
It beats the alternative,
Yes.
I'll tell you that. Any other questions? We got one in the back there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a whole different world. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Any other questions out there? Here's one right here.
That's a great question. So when my mom passed away, I felt like I was most certainly in a valley. It was the hardest thing that I could have ever imagined going through, especially knowing that I had chosen to have a career and not raising my children with a grandparent. And so it took me a while, but I had so much closure with my mom that I was really able to harness all that hurt and apply it to my season. And then I had so many serendipitous moments with having Koa, our son, that it just made it feel like it was part of the journey, and I had to go through that in order to have the gift of the son that I have and the family that I have. So I'm still climbing, but.
Got another question in the back there?
Oh, that's a great discussion. Yeah. So will Koa ski or snowboard? We get that all the time. And to be fair, in July, I took him up to the mountain because Mammoth was still open in the middle of July. And I brought the skis and the snowboard, and I strapped him into a snowboard, and he let me. And I tried to strap him into in the skis, no offense, babe, but he wasn't having it. So far, we're leaning snowboarding. We have one of those little riglets that you can pull him around on the house, and he is standing left foot forward, which my husband would be really proud of. And yeah, so I'm leaning snowboarding, but we're going to be open to whatever he wants to do.
Any other questions?
Our son is 1.5 years.
Got one more in the front there.
Why are we so boring?
Why are mom and dad so boring? Is that the question?
So
Why don't you tell us?
I think I might have a good answer for you. So maybe because we put so much energy to making sure you have fun.
I like that answer, yeah. Yep.
My
Can you
biggest
can you repeat the question?
Yeah. The question is when I was dealing with as I go through life dealing with peaks and valleys, what's my biggest advice to young people trying to show them resilience or show them how to find resilience? And for me, it's never straightforward. I think the thing that I was able to attach to was the mountains, nature, being able to connect with something that can give you something back and energy, and being able to free your mind and clear your mind and let go of all the things that have happened in the past. And through snowboarding, I've really learned how to try to be a lot more present and not let the future and the past dictate so much. Managing fear is a huge part of that for me, and just realizing that fear only exists in the past or in the future, and nothing can inhibit what you're doing in the current moment. So really being able to harness the current moment and not be affected by all the noise around you, because there's so much noise these days. It's really about coming in and staying in tune with yourself and finding what you're most passionate about. When you're passionate, I feel like it really rings true, and it speaks volumes. Even through the deepest valleys, you can find that passion again.
All right, thank you very much, Kimmy Fasani. Don't
Thank you
forget
all.
to check her bakery out, Mammoth Lakes. Thank you very much, Kimmy.
Thank you.
We're going to take another 10 to 15 minute break, and then our designated driver's around. I'm going to figure out who it is. I'm going to bring him up here, and then we're going to start Emily's show. So you got about 10, 15 minute break. Thank you, guys. Bye. All right. Guys having a good time? All right, how's the beer? Awesome. Galen, are you around? I hope you are. There he is. This is our designated driver tonight. It's Galen Wilder. Yeah, thank you. Thankless job. So to get a ride, you just need to meet out front, just past the restrooms. As long as there's people there, we'll keep doing a loop, and we'll make sure everybody gets back to their camp. If you dilly-dally and you're hanging out back or out front here and he doesn't see you, you won't have a ride. But I'm going to stick around and make sure everybody gets out of here safely. So anyway, if you need a ride, meet out front, and Galen will be glad to take you to your campsite. If your friends need a ride, please assist them. Make sure they get on that bus. All right, shall we do our last presentation of the evening? All right. I've been asking Emily to do a show for a couple years now, maybe 3 years. She finally said yes, and I'm super psyched on that. So please welcome Emily Harrington up on the stage, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have fun.
Hello. How are you guys? Good. Okay, is everyone settled? You guys have your beers? All good? Okay, cool. All right. Well, my name is Emily Harrington. This is the first time I've ever been to the Facelift, so I'm very excited. Yeah. I am a professional rock climber. I now live in Tahoe, just a little bit up north. So I've spent quite a bit of time here in Yosemite. But quick run through of who I am. I started out skiing. I actually grew up in Colorado, and I started skiing when I was 2 years old. And I ski raced. That was my thing when I was a kid. I ski raced until I was about 11 years old, and then I discovered climbing. And I started climbing when I was about 10 years old, and as soon as there we go. Sorry. As soon as I started climbing, I decided to quit skiing altogether. I started out in a climbing gym, and I was one of the first generations of kids who started out climbing in a gym. So I didn't start out climbing here. I didn't start out anywhere else in the mountains or on rock or anything. An artificial gym on plastic. And as a result, I started doing climbing competitions at a really young age 10, actually. And I was really into that. That was my thing. That was basically my only concept of what climbing was. I didn't know anything about Yosemite. I didn't really know anything about rock climbing. What it was to me was winning climbing competitions. And I became a national champion sport climber 5 times from ages 16 to 23, something like that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was my thing. That was what I wanted to do. And I was really focused on competitions. So I went from national competitions to World Cups. And I started doing, and that was when I was a teenager. So I started doing World Cup competitions at age 16. And simultaneously, I started to dabble in rock climbing outdoors, mainly sport climbing. This photo was taken in China. And sport climbing really translated well from the gym. It's gymnastic, it's physical, it's very much like gym climbing. You can train in the gym, and then you can be good at sport climbing. And still, to this day, sport climbing is one of my favorite styles of climbing. I really love the process of finding a route, solving the puzzle, figuring out the sequence. I just find it to be so interesting and also physically challenging. But at the same time, sport climbing can be so frustrating. And I find at times that I really need a break from this style of climbing. And I started to realize that in my early 20s. It's kind of like I get tunnel vision with sport climbing. I almost become really obsessed with it. And there's a lot of failure involved. And it can be very frustrating and very mentally tiring. So I found that the best way to combat this sort of burnout from sport climbing competitions was to mix up the disciplines. So I started to try other styles of climbing, other activities. And I realized that if climbing was going to become my life, if that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, I really had to do that. I had to give my mind and my body a break from sport climbing and competitions. So I started to diversify. And I made it a goal for myself to investigate all the different styles of climbing. So I wanted to give my mind and my body a break, and I wanted to not train so much and not be so focused on grades and winning competitions, and I wanted to figure out what climbing meant to me. So I guess for me, this sort of departure from what I was used to, from what I've grown up doing, was my way of exploring why I was choosing climbing for my life. It's sort of a test. In 2011, I traveled to the Himalaya. There we go. To work at the Khumbu Climbing Center. So I joined the North Face team a few years prior to that, and Conrad Anker invited me to go to Nepal to teach Sherpa climbing skills. And for me, that was a really eye-opening experience. It was the first time I'd ever been to the big mountains, and it was the first time I understood climbing outside of this tiny little niche of sport climbing and competitions. The following year, in 2012, I was invited by Conrad to go to Mount Everest, which was sort of a surprise and random. But it turned out to be one of the most valuable experiences of my life for a variety of reasons. Now, it wasn't very technically difficult, as many of you probably know. Mount Everest is essentially just like a walk up a hill. But the altitude and the suffering aspect was something I'd never experienced before in climbing. You know, I was so used to being pushed technically on rock, but I wasn't used to suffering for prolonged periods of time and feeling super shitty because of altitude and all of these things. And so I really learned about type 2 fun on Everest. The other thing that happened to me on Everest was that I met my climbing partner and my partner in life, Adrian Ballinger. He's here tonight. He is a big mountain climber and skier, as well as a high altitude guide and a rock climber. And so it felt like this really good match from the very beginning. This is an actual photo of the night we met, so it's a little bit messy. It's a good story. But that's a different show. Okay. So over the years, Adrian became one of my favorite mountain partners. So he taught me how to suffer in the big mountains. And I taught him how to stand on his feet, as well as how to follow me on long traversing routes in Tuolumne when I don't place any gear. Also, Adrian reintroduced me to skiing, and I fell in love with it all over again, mainly by telling me that he would never date me if I didn't actually know how to ski. Thankfully, it is like riding a bike, and I picked it up quite fast. So, thanks to our partnership, I really expanded my horizons. I climbed and skied big peaks all over the world. I had this partner who would follow me up big routes in the Sierra, and he also wanted to go sport climbing with me, and it was awesome. It was like I was falling in love with a person, but I was also falling in love with climbing all over again. And this potential just seemed endless. So I loved the feeling of getting crushed in the mountains. I loved going out and just getting absolutely destroyed and having an adventure and feeling uncertainty that I didn't get to experience with sport climbing and competition climbing. Growing up as a climber in the gym, you don't really get that adventurous side of things. But at the same time, I really loved rock climbing still. I loved the creativity, and I loved the challenge and the detail of technical hard rock climbing. I am still obsessed with the movement and the games that you play with yourself in your head, and the failure and the struggle of it all. And I discovered that big wall free climbing really offered that perfect balance between adventure and hard rock climbing. So I started to seek out these kinds of objectives quite a few years ago. This photo is from Morocco in 2013. And I just found that big wall free climbing really was the perfect combination of everything that I loved about climbing and being in the mountains. First of all, it's really scary. It's mentally and physically exhausting, and it's really humbling. Mostly, I found the process of big wall free climbing to be incredibly overwhelming. And so the biggest challenge for me was that it causes me to doubt myself a lot. And I'm generally, I feel like people think I'm actually really confident, and I don't really consider myself a very confident person. But I also like to be challenged. And I think that big wall free climbing really brings that weakness in me front and center. It forces me to confront it. And it forces me to try to believe in myself and to take a huge objective and break it down into smaller pieces and make it more manageable in my mind. So in 2015, after a few years of learning how to big wall climb, I decided that I wanted to free route on El Cap. Right over there. And it's the most famous wall in the world. It's incredibly iconic and beautiful and massive, and it is the ideal combination of adventure and hard rock climbing. And El Cap is really hard, if you don't know that. The easiest free route is 513, and I learned over the years, after living in California for a few years and climbing up at Donner Summit and getting super scared on 5'9", after thinking that I could climb 5'9" anywhere in the world, that climbing on granite is no joke. It's hard and it's scary, and you have to be a good rock climber in order to even do moderates. And also, with big wall climbing, you have to know how to exist in the vertical world. We just drove the loop, actually, and we saw like 12 lights up on El Cap right now. So every time, it's cool. But it takes a lot of skills and a lot of experience in order to be successful up there. So I chose Golden Gate as the route that I wanted to try. There's a lot of face climbing, so that's kind of where my background is from sport climbing. There's not quite as much burly wide climbing as there is on the freerider, so I chose the Golden Gate for that reason. It was put up by the Huber brothers, and it's 41 pitches, mainly 5'10 and 5'11, but there's a couple 5'13 pitches. So you kind of have to have a lot of different skills in order to be successful up there. One of the main things you need is a good partner. That year, 2015, Adrian was guiding Everest, and he came home because of the earthquake. So he came home early, and he wanted to climb in Yosemite with me. And interestingly enough, he's lived in California for like over 10 years, and he had never climbed in Yosemite. His first route that year was he free soloed the Nutcracker with Alex Honnold, which is horrifying. I'm really glad we had those footwork lessons before that. And his second route was Golden Gate with me. That's a good tick list. That's all he's got. We have a lot to build upon. And it was hard work. So a wall the size of El Cap takes a lot of days to complete. We have to bring all our water and food and our sleeping stuff, and I'd never done it before. Neither of us had ever done it before, so it was kind of a mission. We had a 75-pound haul bag. It was a pain in the ass. And living up there is hard. You're constantly doing something, and there's logistics that you don't think of, like going to the bathroom, making sure you don't drop everything. Everything just takes energy. It's just not a mellow scene. It's not like going to the sport crag and just chilling. And one of my biggest struggles was the easier pitches, actually. This is the Monster Off-Width. Probably heard of it. It is incredibly physical. It was the worst climbing experience of my entire life, and probably the most difficult, like, physical output. It took me 2.5 hours to climb this pitch. It's the longest ascent of the Monster, I think. This was the result. I just basically cheese gratered my way up it by pinning my elbow and my shoulder against the wall. That was my elbow. So that was day 2. Day 2, and we hadn't even gotten to the hard pitches yet. This is the first hard pitch. That's called the Move. It's like 13A or something, but it's got a really long reach on it that I was having a lot of trouble with. And I completely split my finger open, and unlike being at the sport cliff, you can't just tape it and rest a few days and have it heal up. I just kept climbing on it, and I just kept getting more and more pissed off. It looked a little bit like this.
No! I'm having some doubts. God! I just can't seem to put it together. Fuck! I can't do this. I can't do it.
Okay. Sometimes it's embarrassing, but it's just how I am. Okay. So there were so many days. I think it was 6 days. 6 days, and so many mornings where I would wake up and I would just be like, I don't think I can do it. This is impossible. But what else are you gonna do, right? At that point, you're not gonna go down. So I just kept going up. I kept trying. I kept going. I literally had no more confidence. But at some point, your body takes over. You have autopilot, and I just was like, okay, as long as I keep trying, something will give eventually, even if I don't believe it will. And I also had Adrian there. And I'm pretty sure Adrian also had a lot of doubts about me succeeding. But he didn't show it, which was important. And he had a lot of stoke, and there was a lot of support there the entire way. And eventually, I succeeded, surprisingly. After 6 days, I had climbed all the pitches cleanly, and I got to the top. And it looked something like this.
I felt a lot more confident.
I have like 40 more feet of hard climbing. Going right there. That's all I have to do. I'm glad it's over.
Deep down, I really didn't know if it was possible.
It's a miracle. Oh! I sent the last hard pitch on Golden Gate.
Oh my God, I can taste the tequila.
It's complete emotional release.
Can't really even explain what it felt like to stand on the top.
There's something about her that actually loves totally uncertain goals that are completely outside of her scope of knowledge.
And I'm really, really proud of what I did. There's a lot more that I want to learn and a lot more that I want to do. And I would love to go back and do it better. But for right now, I'm really satisfied.
Thanks. Yeah, so it was an emotional roller coaster. It was my first time free climbing on El Cap. It was a big deal for me. I was really proud of it. But like I said, I wanted to go back and I wanted to do it better. So fast forward to 2019, this past spring, I came back to El Cap, came back to Golden Gate, and this time I had the vision of free climbing it in a day. So free climbing El Cap in a day is quite a bit different because it really distills down the experience into pure rock climbing. There's no hauling, there's no sleeping on the wall, you don't have to carry a bunch of stuff up with you. The logistics are still there, but it's an entirely different set of logistics, and it's all about setting yourself up for that one day of climbing when you can just go climbing. And that's honestly what I love. It kind of like distills it down into everything I love about rock climbing. And for me, it's the epitome of big wall free climbing. On the biggest, most famous wall in the world, having this mental and physical strength to move efficiently and quickly over 3,200 feet of granite. And I think that's what really defines a well-rounded rock climber in my mind. And I wanted that. So this past spring, I was here for most of April and May. And sometimes I was here with partners. I think I climbed with like 10 different people over the course of that time. Sometimes I would go up there alone. That's my least favorite. I don't really like mini tractioning up there alone. I listen to a lot of Beyonce. And it really is about setting yourself up for success on one day. So it actually takes a lot more preparation on the front end than it would if you were just going to go up with a ledge and a partner and a couple days worth of food and water. And my whole idea was I wanted to start from the ground and start climbing and not stop until I reached the top. Hopefully less than 24 hours later. So I spent a lot of time preparing, and I spent a lot of time actually going in from the top down, which someone told me that if you wrap El Cap from the top all the way down to the ground, then you get -1 ascent. So I'm at like -3 or 4 ascents now at this point. So this is a little video of me wrapping the South A head wall. I think I did it 4 times. I was trying to get to the down climb, which is the middle of the wall, and it's so scary. It's the scariest thing I've ever done in climbing, and I hate it so much, but I keep doing it. There I am, just dangling, bandalooping around, trying to get into the wall. There's actually a lot of tears during that moment. And then another thing that happened this spring is, I don't know if any of you guys live in California or were here this winter and this spring, but we kind of had a winter, and it lasted a while. This video was taken on May 23rd, which I had already spent quite a bit of time. This is Yosemite West. They'd closed the road. We had no cell phone service or anything, and I couldn't believe it. I was getting ready to try to free El Cap in a day, and this is what was happening. Okay, so as you can imagine, like that makes it harder to climb, obviously. But I had this one secret weapon. Adrian was actually on Everest this year, but I had a really good partner. I had Alex. He was like, I'll give you 1 day. And, you know, he's busy, like, you know, doing famous people stuff. And so he looked at the weather and he was like, I don't know, it looks pretty shitty, but if you want me to come, I'll come. And I was like, yes, like just come. And so he drove from Vegas and the night before, and we picked the 1 day of the week that had less than 50% chance of rain, which is shitty. Like, you want 0 on El Cap. But so we gave it a shot. We got up and started climbing at 5 a.m. and it was really wet. Like the whole mountain was wet. But I was hoping that the face pitches would dry in the sun and that I could just manage on the wet rock. So actually, it started out okay. I've never climbed quite as much wet rock as I did on that day. Like everything was soaked. I stopped using chalk because it was just like pointless. And it was hard and it was intimidating and I was definitely holding on harder than I should and wasting more energy. One of the highlights was the monster off width it only took me 45 minutes. And I figured out some really sneaky beta. If any of you guys have small feet and you want my beta, it involves changing your shoes halfway through or like part of the way through. It's pretty cool and it helps a lot. So let me know. Come find me if you want the beta. But that just showed me that I had improved as an El Cap climber. I had improved. It only took me 45 minutes and I didn't destroy my elbow and I didn't destroy my shoulder. So that was good. One of the low points was actually the pitch off the monster, off of the alcove. It isn't normally a waterfall, but you can see in this photo it's kind of a waterfall. And I barely got up this one, and it was pretty hard and pretty mentally taxing. And I had bruises all over my body from just trying to climb it in really weird ways because I couldn't quite figure out how to get up it in the wetness. And then I got to the hardest pitch, or hardest pitch for me. It's not graded the hardest, but it's called the down climb. There's a lot of down climbing and free climbing on El Cap, actually. And it's like 40 feet. It's a slab. It's 12C. It's super frustrating and insecure and balancy. And I just couldn't manage anymore. I couldn't stand on my feet. My skin had just gotten so wet from being on wet rock that every time I touched the rock, it would just instantly start sweating, and I couldn't hold on. It was slipping everywhere. And so we decided to call it. That's actually kind of the point of no return on Golden Gate. Like, if you keep going, it's pretty hard to bail off of it. And if we bailed at that point, we could just wrap all the way down. So I decided that with the way I was feeling and also the forecast wasn't looking great, we decided to bail. And we were lucky that we bailed, actually, because that was 45 minutes later. So we were at Heart Ledges, and there were actually still people above us. There was a guy in the monster when it started to look like this. And then it went from bad to worse pretty fast. This is a video I took.
Wait, what's happening?
Dude, we're going canyoneering down El Cap. This is so crazy. But kind of not that scary because you can see the sun and it's like kind of stopping, I think. My feet are waterlogged though.
Oh my god, I'm soaking wet.
Crazy.
I'm completely soaked. It just went from perfectly okay
to perfectly not okay.
To utterly, like,
are you guys
just
okay?
a fucking waterfall. Oh my god, that was insane. What just happened? Wow.
Give you guys a second and just, I think it'll stop. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. I wonder if anybody else up there is okay.
I hope that was a really sudden storm.
Yeah, but this is exactly what I was like. It can get pretty fucking serious on El Cap.
This is serious.
So So it wasn't my day. So yeah, I failed. We retreated in a waterfall. It was actually pretty fun. You know, you could see we were like kind of stoked. We'd made the right decision. And, you know, I honestly don't feel like anything could have been done differently. I learned a lot. And sometimes it's just like that. I often think that stuff like that is going to take more than one effort. It's kind of a big objective for me. And, you know, it might take a couple more failures before I actually succeed. But here I am. I'm back. I'm going to try again this fall, and I'm stoked on that. Yeah. So I think the thing about these big goals is that a lot of times there's things that are not in our control. And so you just have to do your best to control what you can and then let go of the rest. And I also think that it's important to recognize that not feeling confident and feeling like things are impossible is sometimes the best that you can do. There's a lot of times that I feel like a total failure and like I'm never going to succeed. But the one thing I can control is that I can try. And I can just keep trying. And sometimes that's enough. And I think that's what I've learned from big wall free climbing is that like a lot of times it just feels so grim and it feels like you're never going to succeed and you're not good enough. I mean, I guess in a lot of things in life. But as long as you just keep trying, sometimes it works out. So thanks you guys for listening. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the Golden Gate film. A lot of you probably have, but I was asked to show it tonight, so I don't know if you guys want to watch it. It's only a few minutes, or it's like 15 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and show that. This is from 2015. Thanks.
Free climbing El Cap is the very definition of hard rock climbing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're up there climbing super hard moves, 2,000 feet off the ground, sleeping on the wall, having this great adventure, and it's historic. It's what people have been doing for decades. It's a benchmark achievement, and I want to have that for myself. I've put a lot of energy in the last 3 years into learning how to trad climb. I've always had it in my mind that I would try to climb El Cap. That was something that I wanted to do someday. And since sort of delving more into traditional climbing and climbing on granite, that idea became more realistic. And I finally feel like I'm ready to at least attempt to free climb El Cap. I just had it in my head that I wanted to try Golden Gate. I really wanted to just experience El Cap and really give myself a good shot of sending. I'm choosing to free every pitch because I want to say that I've climbed every single move. We're gonna start from the ground and stay up there and just try to send hopefully in one push. Adrian is my boyfriend and he is also going to be my partner.
Adrian's learning how to do this right here.
Emily had this dream of freeing El Cap and wanted a partner, needed a partner.
And he has a lot of experience with climbing and in the mountains.
I love thinking about every tea bag we're gonna bring, every battery, how everything's gonna work, worst case scenarios.
Aside from climbing, it's a massive amount of effort. You have to have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge.
We're gonna practice hauling now, because we don't know how to haul.
Adrian's never climbed a big wall before either. He's never hauled. We're trying to figure this out together. We spent the first day hauling all of our stuff. So we ascended some fixed ropes and hauled it all up with us. We're dealing with really heavy loads. We won't have to rely on anyone else on the ground to bring us anything. We are going to start tomorrow and try to go from the ground to the top in one big push. My goal is to free climb every pitch cleanly.
We just spent the whole day on El Cap. This is day 1 of 6.
I feel like I put so much energy into this and I don't want to blow it. I don't want to disappoint myself. And I won't be disappointed in myself unless I totally choke. I'd never done this before, but I think that's sort of the nature of climbing on El Cap, is there's so much uncertainty and you just have to go try. Like, it comes to a point where you can't just keep rapping down it and working the moves. You just have to go try.
I kind of feel like I might have forgotten how to climb, but I'm sure that's not true.
I was pretty anxious and nervous. Just the entire project felt like it was finally happening. That was actually a really big day for us. I think we climbed 15 pitches on that first day.
We're just getting up and getting things ready. Today I'm really not looking forward to climbing the monster. I'm feeling a little bit more nervous and scared and anxious.
The monster off-width is something that's so scary and intimidating to me. You have to kind of wedge your body into this crack.
Watching Emily struggle on the monster 2.5 hours on the pitch, I didn't know if she could get through it, and I really didn't think she could try it again.
And it was a complete epic battle. I had to fight so hard every single second I was on that pitch. And mentally, physically, everything, it was completely and utterly draining. I kept having to remind myself to not panic. I don't think I've ever exerted myself so hard on a single pitch of rock climbing.
I sort of want to die right now.
I felt like I fought super hard on it, and it made me determined for the rest of the route. I did not escape the monster unscathed. I had 2 huge holes in my left elbow.
There's some blood, there's some scrapes, there's some bruises that look like she's just been like beaten. Em's mental strength, I think, is what's gotten her so far already, and I think she'll be able to push through sort of like the suffering that I think is to come.
I'm glad it's over. Today took a lot out of me. I just really hope I can do the down climb.
The style really changes after today, and I just can't wait to see her start throwing down.
Well, the biggest question for me is the 512 down climb. It's rated 12C. It's a slab. It felt super perplexing. That pitch had been haunting me just because I felt like it might be impossible for me, and I didn't know if I could do it.
No! I had a meltdown on the down climb, for sure. But then usually when I get really upset, I tend to let things go. And then when I try again, for whatever reason, maybe I'm a little more relaxed, things fall into place.
In the end, I managed to figure it out. In a way, I guess it was a little bit surprising because in my head, deep down, I really didn't know if it was possible.
It's a miracle.
After pulling off the down climb, I felt a lot more confident because that was the one thing that I didn't know if I could do. Once again, it was go time, turning towards the next pitches. It was a super exhausting and epic day.
Where else do you toil so much just with surviving, then you get to climb 513, 2,200 feet off the ground. It's just this massive challenge mentally and physically and emotionally. 2 years ago, I probably couldn't have even sent one pitch on this route. You have to be an all-around climber in order to succeed up here.
I'm feeling a little rough. My body hurts really bad. But that's okay. This is what it's about, right?
We were right underneath the move pitch, which is the hardest pitch on the route. I have to try really hard and just keep it together and be mentally strong. I didn't have it that day and decided to take a rest day after that.
I'm having some doubts, but I really want to do it. But I'm worried that I don't have what it takes right now.
Emotionally, the tension was just ratcheted so high.
No! I still had 1,200 feet of climbing ahead of me.
No.
There was one move that was sort of my barrier to sending 3,000 feet of climbing. For me, that's really, really hard to deal with mentally. It was a huge struggle.
No! I can't do this. I can't do it.
Up there, you're in a bubble that is just your team, and you're responsible for yourselves, and no one else really has any clue what you're going through in terms of suffering or success.
One of the most important roles of a good partner is having them there to support you in those dark times when inevitably you're gonna say, I can't do it, I won't do it, I don't wanna do it.
That was just a hard go, those hard moves without any warm-up.
She gets really sad, really bummed, and really questions whether she has it in her.
I became very emotionally wrapped up in the project. I felt like it was the hardest thing that I'd ever attempted to do in my climbing and in my life. I care a lot about the things that I put my time and energy into.
Before she pulls off some big audacious thing, she gets really sad, really bummed, and really questions whether she has it in her. That was the only time I saw her say, I can't do this, I don't want to do this anymore.
I just can't seem to put it together. My skin is ruined. I'm bleeding from everywhere. I'm tired.
Everything was wrong, and yet she still had to find a way to succeed, and that, I think, was a low point. And I really didn't know how to help her to come back out of that. You know, all we could really do is like, we're here, we're not going anywhere. You need to find one more place that you can pull something out of. Em likes to bring us all to the darkest, deepest place and then just throw down. That happened again today.
And I managed to send it at the end of the day, which was a huge relief. I sent the pitch, continued climbing up through probably the last wide pitch called the Chicken Wing Chimney, and it was absolutely terrifying and awful, just like all of the wide climbing on El Cap. I feel super claustrophobic just even thinking about it. That evening, I sent the Golden Desert pitch, which is probably one of the most beautiful pitches of rock climbing I've ever done.
I knew I could do that, and I'm glad that I did, and I didn't like mentally fall apart. I have like 40 more feet of hard climbing. Going right there. That's all I have to do.
Em Harrington and another little battle with an off-width today, and she took her little rug burn here and brought it to a whole new level.
It's called passion. Today's our last day. Hopefully we will be on the top this afternoon.
When Em tops out, she's gonna have earned every bit of it.
I had to do the A5 traverse. It's probably pitch 35, and it's just a 13A 40-foot traverse. I woke up that morning and just gave it hell. I fell at the end, right at the anchors. I'd learned at that point that on El Cap, nothing is for sure until you're standing on the top. I just got in the zone and climbed the way that I know how to climb. So that pitch was the very last difficult pitch on the route. It was the barrier to the summit.
Oh! Isn't the last hard pitch on Golden Gate?
Oh my God, I could taste the tequila. I suddenly was like, it's done, it's on. Like, I started talking about partying again, and all our friends were gonna meet us to celebrate with us. Reaching the summit was just this complete emotional release.
I can't really even explain what it felt like to stand on the top. It's a pretty surreal experience to have started on the bottom of a 3,000-foot cliff and spent 6 days on the wall, giving it absolutely everything I had, physically and mentally and emotionally. If you don't have a good partnership, there will be no success. I was super lucky to have someone who was willing to go up there with me and not even free climb, but just Jumar behind me and support me and belay me.
She needs big, audacious things to keep her motivated and psyched, but there's something about her that actually loves totally uncertain goals that are completely outside of her scope of knowledge.
Every day you have to give it your all. There's no easy days, there's no relaxing. It's an incredibly taxing and hard style of climbing.
This is by far the hardest I've ever seen Emily suffer. I was just incredibly blown away by the depths of perseverance and emotional strength she has. In 3 years, she's gone from completely failing on 5'9" crack climbs to freeing a route on El Cap.
Just over a year ago, I couldn't even fathom free climbing El Cap, and I'm really, really proud of what I did. There's a lot more that I want to learn and a lot more that I want to do, and I would love to go back and do it better. But for right now, I'm really satisfied.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, Emily Harrington. You guys have some questions? Anybody got some questions? All right.
No, just so, yeah, a number 6. I was just
Question.
pushing the number 6.
Let's repeat the question.
Did I have any gear in on the Monster off-width? And yeah, most people bring either 1 or 2 number 6s, and I just had 1, and you just push it above you. Yeah, scary. Anyone else?
Any other questions? Come on.
Okay.
All right.
Oh no, the hollow flake, did the hollow flake feel like nothing? The hollow flake was how I had a bunch of scrapes here from the Monster, and then in the video, you can also see in the video, I had a bunch of scrapes here from the hollow flake. And that essentially you kind of have to solo it, right? Like you don't get to have a 6 or anything. So that was actually quite scary, and that's not in the video. But that was the first off-width horror that I experienced. But this year it was quite a bit better. I'm better at wide climbing than I was then, thankfully. Yeah. Where did I learn to climb? I mean, I learned how to climb originally in Boulder, Colorado, in a gym, at a gym called the Boulder Rock Club. But then since then, I've learned to climb I learned how to trad climb at Donner Summit in Tahoe. Anyone else? Yeah. How long did the hole in my elbow take to heal up? I don't know. Couple weeks maybe. I feel like I had a scar for a while. I feel like I had these scars for quite a while, and then sometimes I'm still not that great at wide climbing. So basically every time I do it, it kind of like gets that way again. Probably have some scar tissue and stuff too, so it's probably easier to rip open. Yeah. My favorite spot to climb in Tahoe. Good question. I think it's probably Donner Summit. I really like Snowshed. I think the routes are really high quality there. I like Cannibal's Gully. Yeah, I've climbed a little bit at Coldstream recently, if you've heard of that. It's kind of a newer zone. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, you then you. The one thing I say in my head when I'm really, really frustrated to get me over it. So I kind of like, if you couldn't tell, I let the frustration like wash over me. But then actually while I'm climbing, I think in my head, if you like could peek inside my head, I'm actually quite calm while I'm climbing. And there's one word that I like to say while I'm doing moves, and that word is yes. So it's just a very positive thing, and sometimes it's hard to be positive, and so that's the word I say to myself when I'm like actually on the wall.
You mentioned it's probably better for your boyfriend, but his first climb was soloing Nutcracker?
His first route in Yosemite, yeah. I set him up on a mandate with Alex because I wanted to go up and climb on the Golden Gate, and he had never climbed in Yosemite before. So I asked Alex to take him climbing, and I said, don't go soloing. And he was taking a break from climbing at the time, so he said that he didn't actually wear climbing shoes. He wore his approach shoes, and so he considered it not climbing. So they went and soloed. They did like after 6, and then they did the Nutcracker. He did it. I was impressed. Thankfully. Anyone else? Yeah.
So I know you was doing some projects in Peru, in Marcha, in Cusco.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Awesome.
So what are you doing there? Sport climbing or some track?
In Peru? Yeah. So he's from Peru. Where are you from in Peru?
I am from Arequipa.
Okay. Close to Cusco. Okay. So I was just in Peru for a lot of the summer, 7 weeks actually. Down in a place called Pitumarca, which is like this high altitude limestone crag, which has endless potential. And I went down there with the North Face team, and we put up a dozen new routes, mainly single pitch sport climbing from like 512 to 514, and then we put up 2 new multi-pitch routes, ground up. So, and I'd never bolted ground up before, or established a route ground up before, so that was pretty fun and exciting. But yeah, we went there to try to develop new routes because that area is becoming more and more well known, and there's so much rock and so much potential. So we did a mix of a little bit of trad climbing, but mainly like single pitch and multi-pitch sport climbing. It was awesome. Have you been there? No. Yeah, definitely go there. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the most horrifying thing to do is actually wrap in to El Cap. Because when you start on the ground, you have a little bit of like, it just like, you gradually gain elevation. Whereas if you go to the top and you wrap in, that's just like, you just drop off the edge and it's just, you're up there. It's quite unnerving. And for me, I don't really have that much good advice except for, I think it's important to recognize that you're supposed to be afraid, and it's okay to be afraid. You know, I think a lot of people, like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people aren't afraid up there. Like, I don't think Alex really feels fear in the same way that the rest of us do, but I like to acknowledge that it's uncomfortable and acknowledge that it's scary and kind of like sit with it. And it shouldn't discourage you from doing it. It's just like baby steps, right? Like there's days when I will go up there and I'll literally like sit on the rope dozens of times to make sure that the rope still works. And I've been climbing for like 25 years, so it doesn't make any sense. But it's just in my head, I have to like test that, and I have to get comfortable with it. And there's days when I can't even focus on moves because I'm so scared. I can't even take falls because I'm so scared. But at least I'm up there doing it. At least I'm trying. I mean, I guess that's my whole point, is like, as long as you keep trying and you push your comfort zone a little bit more like a little bit, I mean, you don't have to go up there and start taking massive whippers right away. Just like baby steps, I think, is kind of the key, and be a little bit nicer to yourself and a little bit more like understanding with your own psychology behind it. I'm scared all the time up there, and I think that that's okay. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, how do you deal with being afraid and being nervous, and then also try your hardest and perform well at the same time? And that is a struggle up there. And it's something, for me, it's interesting because when I was young, I was afraid of taking lead falls. And I couldn't, like, my coaches would always tell me, like, you have to take falls on purpose, and you have to practice falling, you have to do all these things. And I just, like, couldn't get over the fear of falling. And the thing that helped me was my desire to succeed and my desire to perform well. It's like looking at a graph, like started to be stronger than my fear. And I just became so determined to get better at climbing and to succeed that it sort of overtook my fear. And I think that's what happens up there in a way. Like initially you're so scared and you can't focus on anything and everything is overwhelming, and there's so much like sensory overload going on that all you can really deal with is like being there. You can't put any energy into actual movements. But the more time you spend up there, and the more motivated I get to succeed on something, the more comfortable I become with the fear, and the more I'm able to not make it go away. I can't beat it ever, I don't think. It's always there, but I can control it in a way that enables me to focus on what I'm doing. And I think, honestly, it's just time. I think it's just time spent going up there, being afraid, knowing that I'm afraid, dealing with being nervous, like putting myself in positions to feel those things, but at the same time recognize that I also want to succeed. And at some point, there's a threshold, and like the one overtakes the other. If that makes sense. But it's not an easy process. Yeah. I mean, I think climate change is impacting he asked if climate change is impacting climbing. And I think, of course, climate change is impacting climbing. I think it's impacting everything we do, right? I mean, and then you just look at the crazy weather patterns we've had here in California the last few years, and obviously it doesn't have to do with it always being hot and not snowing all the time. It can be like the crazy weather events that we've been having. And I think certainly that affects climbing, that affects our recreation, that affects what we get to do for fun, but it affects our lives, it affects everyone's lives and the rest of the world's lives. And so I hope that we as climbers can all be aware of that and take steps to try to be better environmental advocates. Yeah.
So how long did you spend projecting? Like how many times were you out there now?
For the 2015? What's that? Oh yeah, how long did I spend projecting? Are you asking about in 2015 or this year? For 2015. Either. Okay, so I was there for the whole spring essentially. So I think I wrapped in like 4 or 5 times in April, and then between April and May, and then I tried end of May. And then this year was actually more. I think I went up there from the top 6 times, and from the bottom maybe 5 or 6 times as well. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
As a sponsored athlete, how often do you get to choose destinations for yourself, and how often do they just send you to a place that they want to like shoot you at?
Okay, so as a sponsored athlete, how often do I get to choose destinations that I want to go to versus how often do they send me somewhere to go shoot photos or something like that? It's kind of a mixed bag. We have, like with the North Face, we have an expedition program where we can pitch trips that we want to go to, whether they're objectives or we think they're cool or whatever. Like for instance, Peru was one of those trips. And so that's where we as the athletes get to choose and sort of pitch it to the company and say, this is a cool story and this is why. And then other times, if it's just more of a photo shoot, they'll pitch a place and we'll go there. And I would say I probably do like 1 or 2 expeditions per year, and maybe 1 or 2 of the like more photo style ones per year. And then there's little trips throughout the year, right? But I would say for the most part, a lot of it is just like unless it's specifically for like a photo shoot or something like that, we kind of drive that process and pick where we want to go and what we want to do. Yeah.
As far as like the topic of climate change, are there places you're scared of losing, either rock climbing and big mountain skiing next year?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Adrian and I have been to the Himalaya a bunch of times. I mean, he goes to the Himalaya twice a year, and it's very evident climate change there. Everything is basically falling apart. Rockfall is a huge issue. It's becoming far more dangerous, actually, to climb in those mountains. In addition, down in South America, in Peru, those glaciers are definitely disappearing almost entirely. It is very dry. I think the same could be said for the Alps in Europe. I mean, essentially, most places where you'd want to go climb and ski are being affected. Anyone else?
Is there one last question?
One more question. Yeah, in the back. Mental preparation. What does mental preparation look like before I go to a big route? That's a good one. I'm still trying to figure that out. I think for me, I need like a little bit of quiet time, and I need a little bit of like quiet, like I need rest, more so mental rest than physical rest. So sometimes that's just like being at home and doing something different and not having to think about climbing all the time. So I like to do other things. Like you saw, I like to do other sports and other activities, and that kind of helps me a little bit. And also I visualize a lot. I write things down. I really like to write out, I like to draw sequences and stuff and draw out routes on paper, and then I look back at them. They're kind of more fun to look back on later, too. Yeah.
All right.
Thank
you, Emily. Emily Harrington, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, before you guys leave, I'm hoping to have a little help if we could stack the chairs up against the wall 8 high so we can clean in here in the morning. I hope to see you guys out there. We'll be out front at 8 o'clock. I'll be out there at about 6:37 in the morning if you want to help us early. And tomorrow night we have Molly Mitchell, Enoch Glidden, and Tommy Caldwell speaking. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.